Welcome to the Tax Awareness Show. My name is Shilipe Mutiva. I'm your host. And today I'm having conversation with Neo, who's a lecturer, tax lecturer rather. I need to be politically correct. Tax lecturer at UNISA. We're just going to have a conversation about her career, but equally so, we're going to be touching on the importance of the tax knowledge among entrepreneurs. Equally so, how tax education is actually evolving globally, also considering South Africa, but equally so, how can entrepreneurs approach the tax planning? Now, welcome. Maybe actually, let me just ask this question. Why lecturing?
Hi, Shirley Boy. Thank you firstly for inviting me into the show. I am both blessed and happy to be here and excited. Right. So why lecturing? I don't know. I've always been a teacher. I always knew that I love sharing knowledge. I love teaching other people. So that I didn't know it that at that time that it would be lecturing, but I knew that whatever I will end up in terms of my career will have to do something with teaching or sharing knowledge.
Before actually we dwell into the profession, the tax side of things, who's Neo?
So Neo is Wanyana fela wa Motswana from Molefi-Kau. So I was born and bred in Molefi-Kau, and then now I found a home in Roodepoort, the west of Johannesburg. I'm a mother to two beautiful kids, a son that is 13 years old, and my daughter who is almost 8 now, very cheeky. I'm a wife, I'm a sister to a whole lot of people. That's Neo. I am a DJ on the side.
Wow. Okay.
So my husband has a sound and DJ business that I assist him with here and there.
That's interesting. Tax lecturer, DJing. Actually, it's going to bring me, I want to know what it's like driving to work. So, but before I ask that question, you spoke of kids. Any childhood experiences actually that may have contributed to you taking tax lecturing actually as a career?
Not necessarily childhood, but when I was studying. So I used to, with your journey to becoming a chartered accountant, which I am professionally, you have, I think, 4 majors, tax, accounting, management, financial management, as well as auditing. So tax felt somehow difficult to get during my undergraduate studies. It was a difficult concept because it felt far removed from reality. It looked like something that is just theoretical. You need to know the principles, but you don't really understand, why do I need to know all this knowledge? And then that changed with my postgraduate studies. So I met a lecturer that was very passionate about taxation, that made it very practical, and that made it very relatable. And I knew that I want this experience for everyone else. That's why I went into tax lecturing specifically, and not financial accounting and not auditing, but specifically tax lecturing. And also tax is part of our daily life.
Correct.
So whether directly or indirectly, when you go and buy your groceries, you are affected by tax.
Speaking of the complexity of tax, I'm sure that you've got secrets on how you make tax easy for your students. But before I actually go there, I just want to take a journey with you. I mean, going to lecture tax, you're a DJ, for to be politically correct. What's like driving to work? I mean, before you even driving to work, what are your morning rituals actually? What is like waking up as Neo?
It's weird. I don't have a routine in terms of what do I do firstly in the morning. But what I try to do now, starting this year, is just to be intentional with my mornings. I realize that I spend a lot of time in the morning just scrolling through my phone, replying to this person, doing that. But I've intentionally now, since the beginning of this year, just when I wake up in the morning, the first thing that I do is just change into my gym gear and then just jog for 20 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That has helped me a lot mentally. I feel refreshed. I feel better. After that morning jog, it's difficult to just get up, but I don't even snooze my phone anymore. Once the alarm goes off, I just wake up, change into my gym clothes, just jog for that 20 minutes. And then coming to that aspect of how does my journey look like driving to work?
Yeah, I'm sure there's like DJ in there, or are you one of those who have got a playlist there, well prepared over the weekend that you listen to, or happy would have that playlist, or what is like?
So what happens is when I drive to work, which is very early in the morning most of the time, so I leave my house at around 4:30 because I work in Joburg and I work in Pretoria actually. So I leave from Joburg to Pretoria and I leave at around 5:30. During that time, there's a show on Metro FM, not to advertise anything, but it's called Spiritual Alignment. So that show in the morning, I think it sets me for the whole day. So I listen to that show specifically, intentionally, just to hear the word of the day, just to praise at that time, and then I get to work, and that's how my morning looks like. So where I would have a certain playlist is for my afternoon drives.
Is it? What's in that playlist? What's your top favorite there?
It's jazzy. My current favorite is Calvin Momo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
see him. Shout out to Calvin.
It's a combination of jazz with amapiano, but it's very soothing. That's my current favorite.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, getting to work, what is your day like as a text lecturer actually?
It is quite hectic. So my mornings, the first 2 hours of my mornings, I don't even start looking at my emails. So I do a bit of reading, research for the first 2 hours of my daily life. So I read a bit, and then from there, then I get to my emails, because emails are also a detractor, so they can tend to take up a lot of your time. So there's dedicated time for my emails just to respond to the admin side of the job that I do. So any reporting that I need to do, that's what I do. And then from there, I plan for my students. So that's, okay, what do we need to do for this week, or what are we doing today? So prepare material, because I am in an online space. So I need to engage more with my students. So I plan communication for that specific day. So today, this is where you should be. This is what you need to focus on. So that's how my day looks like.
So you mentioned doing a bit of research, and that got me thinking that maybe being a lecturer, the thing is, when you're speaking on the research, and it made me remember as a text advisor myself, that being able to research, it's one of the most important thing about being a text advisor. So it sounds like also being a lecturer, you need to be one of those people who love doing research, right?
Yeah. If you don't love it, you love it. Right? So research it's quite a tricky area, in the sense that it doesn't come naturally. You need to learn the skill of researching, right? So you need to practice it, and then eventually it will become easier. So that's where I am currently as well. So I didn't start off being this person. So I am easing into that whole researching. So with lecturing, there's different aspects that go into lecturing. You'd think it's just preparing for teaching and learning, but that's only an element to lecturing. There's research that you need to look at. There's academic citizenship, where you need to sit on specific boards, specific committees of the department that you are in, for example, or some committees of the institution that you are in. That's another element to text lecturing. Another element to text lecturing is community engagement. What is the impact that you have with the community that you are within? So what the other thing that I do is, we have a specific project in our department where we go to schools and give extra classes for accounting.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. So that's also an aspect to lecturing that what one needs. It's not just one thing. It's A lot of things that you need to manage and juggle.
I wasn't even aware that there's community outreach programs that the lecturers are doing, which is amazing. I'm very passionate about education, and you guys are doing amazing. I mean, we need to put a spotlight, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've got programs like the tax awareness, because I wouldn't have known that, people go to work as tax lecturers, but equally so, they need to go to the nearest communities and do outreach programs. By the way, I'm going to hijack you. We've got a career day in one of the platforms that I serve on. We are having a career day in March where we are visiting one of the schools. We're going to talk about the career within the property sector. So I also have another hat that I wear in the property sector. So we're going to be having that, talking about various careers within within the property sector. But let's go back to the issue of research as being one of the skill set that one has to have. I'm sure when you are interacting with students, you just go like, I think this one is going to make a great tax advisor. What would you have identified by saying that?
I think that's tricky, Chili Boy. It depends on where you are, right? So from an online side of things, which is the space that I play in, and online teaching, is you look at the communication, because you don't really get to see the students that often. So it's the type of communication that you get from a student, the manner in which they address you, their writing skills, the logic in the argument that they present to you, how they receive certain information that you present to them also, and how they analyze that. I think those elements are what would tell you that, okay, here I have someone that could potentially challenge me, or that would be a better person than I am. And I love engaging with those type of students.
Okay. Not that you don't engage the others.
No.
We engage all of them. I
love a challenge. My role with teaching is not to be the person who has all the knowledge. It's just to facilitate the teaching. So we learn from each other, and I really enjoy that. That's
true. We also learn from clients, by the way. But speaking of the community outreach, where you're going and increasing the financial skill set or the accounting literacy, how important it is tax education among young people? Do you really think that tax should also be considered as one of the tax education rather should be brought in from young age? Do you really believe in that?
I do. And my analogy with that is tax has been made for a long time to be this monster, to be this, for me, it feels like SARS, as a leading organization, or as the authoritative organization in terms of taxation, has been made to be that parent, that very strict parent that tells you this is what you need to do, but they don't really tell you the reason behind doing that. And the sooner we introduce tax education to young kids or like young children, the better. And we don't introduce it from a compliance perspective, but from an understanding perspective. Why do we need taxation? Why do we need to comply to tax? The reasons behind, the benefits of paying for your taxes, for example. I think it is very important, and it's very key, so that when these people grow up or go on to start their business, they understand the importance of tax education, and they have that skill.
Tax education, I interact with entrepreneurs. Even our show, we're grateful to Business Partners. They are the official sponsor of the Tax Awareness Show. They deal with a lot with entrepreneurs, and in some cases, we interact with their clientele. And speaking of the tax education side of things, there's also an element of tax knowledge. It's more or less the same thing. How do you think, how important it is for entrepreneurs to have a foundation, a very strong foundation of tax knowledge?
Okay. I think I want to pose this question back to you, Shiliwa. I think maybe for me to get a bit of insight into it, you coming from a practical side of
Correct.
taxation, so you are in practice. What do you think, or how do we define basic tax knowledge for an entrepreneur? So, what level of knowledge would you think is sufficient for an entrepreneur to have? Because I don't necessarily deal, or I'm not actually in practice. So I don't really have an idea, or don't engage much with entrepreneurs, but there's a certain level of knowledge that one needs to have. So I'm posing the question back to you, just to maybe give me an idea or insight into the kind of knowledge or basic knowledge. What would you say is basic knowledge for an entrepreneur to have?
I actually like that, because one of the literature, I mean, you will agree with me, as a technical tax advisor, you're required to read.
Yeah,
There's
true.
a lot of reading that we do.
A lot.
And one of the literatures that I came across, they actually made that the tax awareness. And that's one of the things that inspired the title of the.
Great.
So, and it's about, is the entrepreneur aware of when they should pay tax? Are they aware of how to calculate their taxes? Because you and I can agree that there's a principle of self-assessment. What do I mean by that? We mean that there's a certain types of tax that you as an entrepreneur, you as a taxpayer, you are actually expected to calculate and submit to SARS. The tax liability that you think that you should be paying, you need to submit to SARS. And those are types of taxes are such as VAT, pay as you earn. You self-assess yourself, you submit the returns with that. So you're expected to actually have some form of knowledge around that, where you can be able to calculate such. But equally so, you are expected to know how to make payment. Once you submit tax returns, if there's any amount that needs to be paid, you are actually expected to know how to go about making payment, whether it's through e-filing or EFT, but you're expected to know that, right? But equally so, you and I can agree that some of the tax type, you don't automatically just get registered.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have employees, you're not going to register as an employer with SARS, meaning that you don't have to submit the EMP 201 every month, for that matter. Or if you're not making revenue that is more than R1 million, you don't have to register for what you call for VAT. Therefore, you need to be awareness. You need to be aware of when you should be actually registered as an employer, when you should be registering as a VAT vendor for that matter. So those are some of the level of the knowledge that we expect the entrepreneurs to have, because what it does also, it helps you to manage your business. It helps to enforce the governance around your business, and so that you don't unnecessarily incur penalties, because we know that if you don't submit your tax returns, you don't pay tax as and when it's due, then you can actually. So I think that's pretty much the tax education or the tax knowledge that we expect to see among entrepreneurs. But maybe speaking of education, I mean, you're in a tax education space. How are you seeing tax education actually evolving globally?
Before we get to that, the evolving of tax education, I just want to go back to that question, because I asked you to provide insight. So you've provided me with that insight. So now I'm responding to your question.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think with what you said, then it is very important for entrepreneurs, especially small businesses, to have that knowledge as to when would I need to pay my provisional tax, for example, so that I'm compliant, right? So, and that is not something that can be taught once off. It needs to be regular so that it becomes second nature to your business. So what I've seen is, with a lot of campaigns, it's something that happens once off, maybe during the tax season, but that needs to be instilled on a regular basis. Maybe once every 3 months, then you have that refresher course, you have that workshop that you attend, where you just go and touch up on the updates that have occurred in the space. Because with tax, with with text, there's a lot of updates. There's amendments that go on, so you need to be in touch with those. So I think it is very important to upskill yourself as an entrepreneur. Attend these workshops that are conducted on a regular basis, because we learn by doing. So the more you do, the better you are at actually getting.
Or just watch the tax awareness show.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
No, but maybe going back to my question around the tax education, similar to that, how are you seeing tax education actually evolving?
I'm going to respond to that in two levels. So from basic education side, I think we are coming there, but we don't have things right currently. The curriculum in terms of financial literacy as a whole needs a lot of work. And I think it's our responsibility as higher education to assist that work to happen. So to do a lot of research on how economics and management sciences as a subject can be better packaged, so that it touches on tax effectively or efficiently, right? So with regards to that, we have a long way to go in terms of our basic education. From a higher education space, I think we are doing fairly well. And I might be biased because I am in
You're allowed.
because I am in higher education, but I think we are doing fairly well. One thing that could use a lot of improvement is the transformation in our teaching and learning approaches in terms of tax education. So why can't we have experiential learning in tax education? Because the subject is very practical. Why are we only doing the theory part of it? How about we get some sort of an agreement to have our students do tax returns for the community to help SARS during tax season?
It's an interesting one, actually.
So we need to introduce an element of doing by practice in our teaching and learning in terms of tax education in South Africa. That is happening around the world. I know for a fact that there is something like a tax clinic with the United States. They have tax clinics. Australia, they have tax clinics where they have their students assisting taxpayers from a specific type of group, maybe the less disadvantaged, those who can't afford a tax practitioner, for example, to assist them with their tax affairs. So they get practical experience, and they really are equipped with the skill of making their own money, man. Before, not everyone has an opportunity to go into the large firms to practice tax. So if you are equipped with that skill already, when you leave university, you are an entrepreneur. You can do that yourself.
Exactly. But maybe let me go back. I mean, we're speaking a lot on tax education. What is your secret on easing the learning of tax?
Okay. For me, communication is key, especially coming from an online environment. Fortunately, I have both your residential university type of students experience as well as your online students. With online, students tend to feel very alone. So there's limited communication because you're there. You're expected to know how to navigate around schedules. You are expected to plan your own time. So what I have realized is that communication is very key. How you also speak to your students and your consideration of other factors that may come into place with the type of student that you're dealing. So we can't be in this day and age in our country be dealing with students from a blanket type of approach. Every student is different. They have their own background. A student might come to you and tell you that I could not submit my assignment, for example, on a specific day. You can't say, but sorry, that the due date is done, so I can't give you an extension. You need to understand why. Remember, we're dealing with students that might have issues with regards to power, which is a problem in our country, right? So we need to look at all these socio-economic factors or social factors before we just say, sorry, I can't help you. It is what it is.
Correct.
So I think that's my approach to text education or teaching of text. I just take into account that whoever that I'm dealing with is an individual, and I need to understand them first.
Empathy, correct.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Speaking of digital, speaking of you guys now conducting lecturing via Teams as an example, and students also having to submit their assignments maybe digitally. Maybe in practice or even as a text profession for that matter, how do you see artificial intelligence actually changing the text profession landscape?
Oh, all right. With that, it comes to how are we in terms of our collaboration skills? Because we have the knowledge
Collaboration
as text practitioners or as a text expert, let me rather say. So you have that knowledge, but it's not the knowledge that will assist you going forward with artificial intelligence, because that knowledge is there, it's widespread. So how are you able to use all these data that we have to make sure that you assist your client, for example, in terms of their text planning? So we need to have that skill of collaboration with data specialists so that we can be able to use the information that we have to plan our text affairs better. For example, we have now auto assessments. That's an example of digitization. So we need to look at such things. Yeah.
Speaking of auto assessment, it's something that just practical thing that just actually you just reminded me is that when the auto assessment actually happens, guys, don't just accept that return as it is. Review that and make sure that if you are happy with it, then only then you can accept it. So just be aware again, text awareness.
Just also to add to that, Shili Boy, you need the skill. So you will have to know how to navigate your way around looking or reviewing that assessment. So as text experts also, we need to upskill ourselves in terms of technology, right? So that's also where we are headed towards the role or the profession of a text advisor or a text practitioner or a text expert.
Tell me something, speaking of the skill, how do you see entrepreneurs actually approaching the text planning?
Again, going back to my conversation, data analytics. Analytics are going to help us a lot in terms of text planning. But also there's somebody or there's someone somewhere that feeds into that data. So that garbage in, garbage out type of thing. So if you're dealing with data that hasn't been inputted correctly, you're also going to be planning incorrectly. So the person that the person that inputs the data would be important to your text planning as well. So the analyzer, as well as, I don't know, for lack of a better word, the person that inputs that data.
Yes, the capturers.
The capturers.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But maybe in sort of a closing, maybe have a conversation with a child, that young little daughter or that young boy who's not really on high level, who doesn't know the text profession and they want to embark, or for that matter, that child who's at university and wants to take this career, to pursue the text profession as their career. What would you say to them as a sort of a motivation to them?
I would say that everything seems difficult until you actually do it. So the first thing that I would like to say is have the courage to start. So if you plan on doing something, if you see there's an ideal career for you, just start it, apply, right? If you haven't applied, if you are in university, register, do something, start, right? You need to have a starting point. You need to have that courage to start firstly. Once you have started, commitment is very key. Like I said, text can be difficult if you're not committed to understanding the principles behind it if you are in university. So you need to be committed. Commitment is a daily thing. It's an activity that requires action. So it requires you to be sitting on your table every night for 1 hour at minimum. and studying the legislation, studying how to apply it, because it's a practical topic or subject. So you need to be able to practice. So you can read as much as you want, but if you don't practice, it doesn't make sense. Right. So those are the two things that I would say. Have courage and be committed to whatever goal you set for yourself.
I like that. Thank you so much for joining us, Neo. I hope that is not the last time we have a conversation with you. We want to know those insights on how can we practically, or the gap between the theory, the tax planning from theoretical point of view and practical point of view. Hopefully Neo will join us in the near future. That's it. My name is Shilipa Mutiba. I'm your host, and that's the end for today. And we hopefully to see you next time. Good day.